Typically, the longer you do a job, the better you get at it, right? Well, I get it. Yeah, there's always those exceptions, right? Just messing with you, Kyle. If you can't pick on your best friends, who can you pick on, right? But fantasy football is no different. Now that some of these guys are through their rookie seasons, heading into their second year, are they primed for a second-year breakout? We got some young studs at the wide receiver position that we're talking right now. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Today we're talking about some stud wide receivers heading into their second year here in the NFL. And I think maybe we were spoiled a little bit last year, right? A ton of talent at the wide receiver position. Now, the purpose of this show is not to say that I like one guy and I don't like another guy, or you should or should not draft these guys. What we're meant to do here is group them all together to, 8 of the top guys here heading into their second year, and really just compare them in different facets of the game and really try to identify how big of a breakout could we be looking at, how much of an improvement could we be seeing from some of these guys. Full disclosure, I don't think I dislike any of these guys. I mean, obviously everybody has a price on draft day except for Ronald Jones, and these guys definitely have their price as well. But before we get into the 8 names, we got 8 guys we're discussing here today. I'm going to be comparing in multiple different areas. I want to set a goal. We've yet to have a video yet this offseason get 800 likes. Can we get 800 likes in this video? If we can, I'll give away a free draft guide to somebody who leaves a comment down below. Let's see if we can hit 800 likes here on a video in the offseason. Haven't seen that number in a while, but now it's time. Here are the names we're going to be discussing in today's video. And like I said, a few of the top second-year wide receivers. We got CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos, T. Higgins, Bengals, Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers, Chase Claypool of the Steelers, Jalen Reagor of the Eagles, Laviska Shenault, a very, very hyped name so far here this offseason, of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, when you're looking at wide receivers, especially in fantasy football, you're trying to find what areas of the game really lead to potential fantasy production, right? Because the NFL game is definitely different than fantasy. We're looking for different things. So here's a few of the metrics we're going to be looking at here today. And the first one's going to be heavy passing offenses, right? We don't want to go out there and target teams who barely throw the ball. The more pass attempts we see, the more potential for targets. That's what it's all about. What about catchable targets, though? The targets don't mean jack squat to me if they're all over the place. Did you know that if a quarterback throws the ball away out of bounds, whichever wide receiver is closest to said throw gets credit for a target? However, it wasn't even catchable. So those are the types of things that we need to kind of eliminate. We're looking at catchable targets and target accuracy. Red zone targets, they're super important, right? We want that touchdown upside on a weekly basis. Yards after the catch, or as a lot of people like to call it, yak. We're looking for guys that can make something happen once the ball is in their hands. That big play ability. Target separation. This is key to me because not only are they getting the targets, how open are they when the targets are coming their way? Is everything a contested catch, or are these guys able to get some separation, make that clean catch, and then turn it into yak? Slot snaps. Now, a lot of people want to know, what the hell does slot snaps have to do with wide receivers? Well, think about some of the young studs that I just named. For the most part, those guys spend more time in the slot. They get more mismatches, right? However, not every wide receiver goes into the slot. If I had to choose between 2 studs and they're super equal on a lot of areas, I'll go with the guy who gets the most snaps in the slot, because more times than not, he's getting in a slot corner or maybe even a linebacker at times. These guys can super excel in that type of matchup, so that's what I'm looking for in those mismatches. And then competition for targets, right? If they're in an offense full of weapons, obviously the ball's going to be spread around a little bit. If they're the guy in the offense, they're going to see that upgraded target share. So we got to make sure we look at the entire roster as far as pass catchers go to see, which one of these guys is really going to have to split the most with their teammates. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up this first slide here, and it's going to be heavy passing offenses, right? We're looking for the teams that throw the ball the most. Now, in each one of these metrics, I'll have them ranked 1 through 8, 8 being the highest score. At the end of this show, we'll total up all the scores and see who ranks highest and see if that's something we even agree with or not. But for this metric, this is what we're looking at. Michael Pittman and the Colts, we know they're going to run the ball a lot. Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines, that's going to be option one. We know Paris Campbell at times is injured. T.Y. Hilton is a shadow of what he used to be. And because of that, they've decided to throw a little bit less in Indianapolis, and they've found success. So that leads to 36 pass attempts for Michael Pittman. Jerry Jeudy at 37, just behind. What kind of quarterback play do we have this year? Is it Teddy B? Is it Drew Lock? Brandon Ayuk, same thing can be said for him, right? Is there a change at quarterback at some point in 2021 from Jimmy G to Trey Lance? T. Higgins was about to explode last year, and then Joe Burrow went down. What happens now that he has to compete with Jamar Chase? They're throwing on average right around 39 times a game. However, you have to remember that number is slightly skewed because Burrow was injured second half of the season. Laviska Shenault in the Jags, 41.2 pass attempts per game. I really don't expect that number to go down. The Jags defense still isn't great, and they're going to be trailing a lot, having to throw a lot. Jalen Reagor and the Eagles, 41.4. Kind of similar numbers to what I expect us to see here this year. They may go down slightly with Jalen Hurts because he does have that ability to use his feet in that offense. So that may be something that takes a slight hit, but not too much there in Philadelphia. Chase Claypool and CeeDee Lamb rounding out here the top 8 with the two biggest numbers. The Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at 42, the Dallas Cowboys at 43. Those numbers are not going to change. They are pass-first offenses, even though Dallas has Ezekiel Elliott and now Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. Both these teams have too many weapons on the outside to not throw the ball a lot. So I don't expect those numbers to change too much. So let's move on to the next one here. Let's look at catchable target rate. And I like this stat. I really pay attention to this one because I want to make sure that the targets that are going to the wide receivers that I'm drafting are actually catchable, right? I think targets, a lot of people see numbers and they just fall in love with the surface stat numbers, but they really don't pay attention to how many of those targets were actually catchable targets, right? So here is this list 1 through 8. Am I surprised that Jerry Jeudy is at 62.8%, the lowest of all these guys? I'm really not, right? This is not something that he can really control, but the quarterback play just wasn't there in Denver. Is it going to be this year? That's the biggest question, right? Maybe a slight improvement in efficiency if they go to Teddy Bridgewater. But what this also tells me is Jerry Jeudy at times performed well in fantasy football in 2020, and only 62% of his targets were catchable. If that number bumps up at all with better quarterback play, we're getting a whole lot more production from Jerry Jeudy because he's doing the other things really well. What this also tells me is more than half the guys on this list really aren't going to improve on this number in 2021. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, CeeDee Lamb, Laviska Shenault, and T. Higgins, all over 72% catchable targets. That's not bad at all in the NFL. And honestly, I don't see them improving too much of that. And I guess you can almost throw Chase Claypool in there as well, over 70%. That's a great number. 70% is kind of going to be that sweet spot. Anything over that is gravy. But what really surprises me here, the two highest on this list, Laviska Shenault and T. Higgins, who arguably had the worst quarterback play of all the other guys on this list last year for the most part. Now, Laviska Shenault had himself a carousel, right? Jake Luton, Gardner Minshew, whoever else they wanted to throw back there. Joe from Section 313 that was 3 beers deep. Whoever it was playing quarterback for the Jags last year. That's what Laviska Shenault had. And then T. Higgins, who did have half a year of Joe Burrow. But after Joe Burrow went down, the catchable targets were still there for T. Higgins. 84% catchable targets is absolutely insane. They ain't improving on that. I like me some Joe Burrow. I like Joe Burrow a lot, but 84% for T. Higgins is about the ceiling for almost anybody here in the NFL. What about the next stat here? Let's move down to, how about red zone targets? And man, look at that. We were one red zone target away from either CeeDee Lamb or T. Higgins giving us the super royal flush here on the slide. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 13, and 14. But what this slide tells me is none of these guys are overly active in the red zone. They're going to get, a look now and again, once a game, maybe every other game, and that's about it. That's not really the strong suit of a lot of these guys. However, the one that kind of stands out to me a little bit is CeeDee Lamb, because he did a lot of that without Dak Prescott. Now, a full season of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb could come unhinged inside the red zone because he is somebody who can definitely make some of those athletic contested catches. Brandon Ayuk being the leader here doesn't overly surprise me. Remember, there's a lot of times last year where he was the guy in the offense. Deebo Samuel injured. George Kittle was out at times. Brandon Ayuk was the guy in the red zone for a majority of the season for the 49ers. T. Higgins got a lot of his work pre-Joe Burrow. So if they can take a step forward there and maybe have a little bit more of an even split between him and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd, he could get a slight uptick. Laviska Shenault at 10. That's a little bit, interesting, right? Because Laviska Shenault didn't get a whole lot of run last year, and what run he did get, it wasn't with great quarterback play. So he's definitely a name that we're paying attention to. A little surprised that Michael Pittman, only 9, the biggest wide receiver here of the bunch, at least the guy that really screams red zone production. He's like a poor man's Mike Evans, and he wasn't really utilized in the red zone much last year with only 9 targets, but definitely numbers that they can improve upon. But like I said, none of these guys really jumping off the page one way or the other. What about Yak? Let's go to yards after the catch. And really looking at this slide here, they're all pretty equal, right? Except for Jalen Reagor. He's the one sub 200 guy, which is a little bit confusing because the guy has next level speed, but really didn't have much of an opportunity in 2020. Don't want to hold that against him now with Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Travis Fulgham, Miles Sanders in the backfield. Hopefully they can take some of that pressure off, get him the ball in space a little bit more because he couldn't make things happen. After that, you got Jerry Jeudy, Laviska Shenault, Michael Pittman. Little crazy that Michael Pittman only 46 yards behind CeeDee Lamb. Now, he had a couple big plays, which is going to, account for a chunk of that yardage, but it shows that the guy still has that ability to make things happen after the catch. CeeDee Lamb being the leader here, to me, isn't a surprise. You'll see why here in a couple slides. It's all about playing in the slot, right? We talked about it at the beginning of the show. If you're playing a lot in the slot, you have a better opportunity for mismatches, and CeeDee Lamb is a mismatch nightmare in the slot for any opposing defense, and he can make things happen when the ball gets in his hand, especially with those short crossing routes. What about target separation? Now, target separation is going to be something we've talked about here before, right? It's the amount of distance between the wide receiver and the closest defender at the time of the target, right? And all these guys over 1 yard of separation, so we know they at least got 3 feet to play with, which is great, because if it's sub 1 yard, we're a little bit worried about their separation here. Jerry Jeudy, though, shows that he can get open, right? 1.64 yards of separation per target. The guy has no problem getting open. The problem for him, remember, was the quality of catchable targets. So that shows me that he can get open. If the targets can get better, Jerry Jeudy is going to do some damage. Same thing with Michael Pittman, a big-bodied wide receiver. He can find that separation, and so can CeeDee Lamb. They're all above 1.5 yards of separation, and that is a great number to be ahead of in the NFL. But here's the big daddy. Now we'll move on to slot snaps here real quick, and you can see exactly what I was talking about with CeeDee Lamb. This dude had 621 snaps from the slot. The next closest, Jerry Jeudy at 230. You can basically pencil it in that CeeDee Lamb is the slot receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. He will be once again in 2021, and he is borderline unstoppable from the slot. Give him an entire season of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb could put up wide receiver 1 numbers 100%. I mean, that is a great number. You know he's going to be in the slot and has more opportunities than anybody else on this list for those, great mismatches on game day. Not going to take away if people don't have slot snaps, right? Chase Claypool, only 70, but that's not his game. What makes Chase Claypool still somebody who's viable in fantasy football and in the NFL is that big play ability, right? And he can do that with his athletic ability, his size from the outside, right? He can win those contested catches. He could run away from defenders on the deep ball. He has that potential, right? So they don't need to put him into the slot. This isn't a knock on any of these guys. Really, all it tells me is which one of these guys is going to have the most chances to have those mismatches. And for me, in this slide, it's the bottom 3, right? T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb. But like I mentioned, I can't hold it against any of these guys. I'm not saying it's a knock on any of them. It's just something else that I'll look at if I need to make a tough decision between one or another. What about competition for targets on their own team? And some of these guys got a lot of competition for targets, right? I mean, especially the guys here at the top of the list, Chase Claypool, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins. Their offenses are absolutely stacked at the wide receiver position. And I don't want to take too much away from it because they're still going to be a part of this offense, but they got to fight every single week to try to go out there and get those 6, 7, 8, 9 targets a game. That's kind of why I still like CeeDee Lamb too, because he plays in the slot majority of the time, right? So he's still going to get the better looks in that offense than maybe an Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup on the outside, and that's why it doesn't hurt CeeDee Lamb as much as it hurts some of the others. Laviska Shenault, now he's got to worry about Marvin Jones Jr. this year. They drafted Travis Etienne. Ayuk has a healthy George Kittle back and a healthy Deebo Samuel. Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert. We got the new rookie, the incoming Heisman winner from college football, Devontae Smith. Jerry Jeudy could be a little bit further up this list, definitely in that 3 or 4 range. He could be hindered a little bit more if I knew Courtland Sutton was 100% healthy. Now, reports are coming out that Sutton looks good. He shouldn't have any limitations, but I want to see him on the field, full sprint, full go, 100%, no limitations, before I really make that adjustment. Coming off a torn ACL, he has that potential to start a little bit slow. And then Michael Pittman will receive the most points here in this category just because T.Y. Hilton is a shadow of what he used to be. He banged up all the time. Same thing for Paris Campbell. We can't get him on the field. Jack Doyle is out there, but Michael Pittman has the opportunity to be the man once again this year in Philadelphia. Could he become Carson Wentz's Philadelphia version of Alshon Jeffrey in this offense? I think it's possible, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Michael Pittman approach 8 to 10 touchdowns here in 2021. But now that we've gone through each of these, let's just bring up their overall scores in each category. And here you can see, the overall scores for all these guys in each section. You can kind of see where some of the deficiencies were in each section. You see Jerry Jeudy came off to a slow start, right? 2-1, 2-2, really dug a hole, finished strong in a couple of the other categories, but just has a lot going against him right now. Some overall high scores. Am I surprised that CeeDee Lamb scored the highest out of this bunch? No, I'm really not. And honestly, I think a lot of it ties to the slot snaps. That is a huge number right there and kind of gives him a leg up on a lot of people. I'm going to go ahead and sort these real quick so you can see what they look like here in order, so you don't have to try to piece them together yourself. And you can see CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, Laviska Shenault, Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool, Jalen Reagor. Now, when we bring up their projected ADP for this, you can kind of see all these guys are 4th round or later, which I do love, right? Because that's when I'm starting to really look for wide receivers. I could go running back, the first 2 or 3 rounds, 2 running backs and a tight end maybe, and then right around round 4 is where I'm starting to lean heavy on wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb sitting there in the 4th round will be somebody that honestly, after going through all this, I wouldn't have an issue with, depending who else is there on the board at that same time. You move on to the 6th round, we got T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk. And then you go all the way down to the 10th round for Michael Pittman. So that's great value right there. Laviska Shenault in the 9th. Also, another name that I'll take a stab on here in 2021, because if he can get some decent targets from Trevor Lawrence and get some of those short crossing routes across the middle where he can use his speed to really take it to the next level, I don't hate that whatsoever. Jerry Jeudy looking good in camp with Teddy B, but is Teddy B the starter? That's something we need to really wait and see. Chase Claypool, love Chase Claypool. I want to take nothing away from Chase Claypool. He's just got so much to share with, right? With Juju and Deontay, they're sucking up over 100 targets apiece. It just doesn't leave Claypool enough weekly for me to feel safe about it to draft him in the 6th round. By that time, there's probably other names there that I'm probably feeling a little bit safer on, but the ceiling absolutely there. And then Jalen Reagor in the 12th round is somebody who's probably not going to be, I target a whole lot in 2021, but he'll definitely be a name that has the opportunity to break out here in his 2nd year. In my opinion, with the quarterback play of Jalen Hurts coming in, who's not known for, a super high passing completion rate, I'm kind of worried about Jalen Reagor for the most part. Do they force feed Devontae Smith? Is Dallas Goedert the red zone guy? Where does Jalen Reagor really fit in? How do they utilize the running game? And we know Jalen Hurts is going to be utilized in the running game as well. A lot of questions there surrounding Jalen Reagor, so he may not be a guy that I focus on heavily, but all the other guys, honestly, they all have value for the most part. It all depends who's available at that time, but I want to know how you guys think. What do you feel about these 2nd-year wide receivers? Which one of these guys, if you had to pick one, I know everybody's probably going to pick CeeDee Lamb. Who's going to break out this year? One of these guys going to have a huge season. Maybe tell me somebody down below outside of CeeDee Lamb, who do you think has that potential? Who's the one guy that you're really focused on in this list that you think can break out here in 2021 fantasy football? Put it down below in the comment section. Once again, I set that goal, right? 800 likes. Can we get it here in the offseason? Haven't been able to hit it yet, but I have a feeling Headliner Nation isn't going to let me down here on that challenge here today. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week. We greatly appreciate the support. We look forward to talking to you and seeing your comments down below. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks.